Hi everyone, welcome back to the Capacities channel. Today I am in a brand new space, as you can see, and I want to show you how we might build out a network of people and all of the things that people can be related to. I imagine regardless of how precisely you want to use capacities, we probably all have a person object type within it, so I'll show you some general tips and tricks, and I guess along the way show you how object types and linking and all of this works in capacities. So let's get started with the easiest starting point, and that is by adding the person template, and this will begin our network of people. So I'll be using a few different templates today, and then we'll also be creating a couple of our own object types as well. So I've got my person object type created now, and what we can do is head over into the settings. So I'm going to click on the three dots here. They also are the same dots in the top corner, and we're going to go to object settings, and this shows us the settings that will be applied to every person object that we create. So everyone will have a title, tags, a place for a contact, a place for a picture, and a category. Think of this like personal, professional, family, and then a place for you to write about them. You could jot down gift ideas, you could jot down things you know about them, whatever you want. But if people are the centre of the space that we're building, I think we can add a few more properties. So I'll show you a variety, and you can just choose the ones that work for your context. So we can add properties in a couple of ways. The first is in this panel here, or indeed by opening up the settings again and clicking new property. The first one I'm going to add is a date time property for when I last saw them. So I'll call it last seen. And I'm going to click person to go back to that screen, and I'm also going to add one for last reached out, and we'll go back. Another easy one that we can add is a text property. I really like one called memory jog. You know, when you like find little nuggets of information about people that you want to remember, I think it's great to be able to write those down. And I think a general one that's quite good to know, but maybe more for a work use case, is job title. So I've just added a text property for that as well. And if I close that, I can now see I've got a few more properties that I can fill in, and we can start to see how this might look. There's a few extra things though that I think are really useful, and it takes this from being just essentially a useful contact sheet to a real core part of this network. And what we're going to do for that is create other object types and then essentially link them together. And I'm going to show you how to do that and show you how this can be useful. So we'll start with the job example. So I want a way to be able to say that somebody works at an organisation, and it's possible that I'll know lots of people at an organisation, and I want to be able to link all the relevant people to that. So the easiest thing to do in that case is to click new type and organisation. This is another template, and we'll click use, and again it comes with its own properties. You can choose to edit them, whatever you like, but we're focusing from the people side now. So now that I've got that organisation's object type and I'm able to create capacities, for example, I now want to be able to link this object to capacities in a property, and that kind of structure is taken care of by a select property, and I'll call this works at, and I always use a little briefcase to show jobs. But can you see at the top here it says it's connected to the tag object type. So if I close that now, the options I get will just be my tags, and that's not what I'm looking for. I want the options here to be organisations. So we can change this in the settings. This takes me straight to the property settings, and here where it says the link type is tag, I want it to be organisation. And if we scroll up, that has now been changed, which tells me it's correct. I click apply changes, and now when I go to this property, I can choose capacities. And that is useful, because what's going to happen over time, as you meet more people, as you write down the places that they work, you're going to end up with a list of contacts at this organisation, and that's going to show up in your backlinks. And this is a backlink view called embed. And that means you can open up this toggle with this arrow here and you see everything you know about that person. So instantly I see, okay, here is everyone I know that works at Capacities, and look, that the contact is there straight away for you to get in touch with. And that is very nice. You can actually take this a little bit further just while we're here and add a link. And that's added an email link right away. And that's kind of immediately one example of how building out a network of people is easy and is useful. That took no time at all, because now I've set up that property, any other new person that I create has that exact same setup, and I can choose again from the list of organisations that I have. And now if I open up Capacities, I can see that I know 2 people, and it even tells me like what that relationship is, and that is that these people work at Capacities, and obviously this label has come from the name of the property. And we can take this idea of connecting object types together through a select property further. I think another great example is like cities or locations. So to create this connection between the person object type and locations, obviously we need to create a location object type. So I will click create your own, and we'll do location, do a pin, and we'll give it a nice green and create that object type. And because I want to connect people to locations, I'm going to put the property in the person object type. I'm going to go to my settings again, and again I want to do multi-select, location, pin, and again by default it connects to the tags object type. All you need to do to change that is click the correct one here. You can double check it's correct on this top line, click apply, and I now have the option to fill out location. Now obviously we've just created this, so there's nothing there yet, but we can put that in, and that will then also be added obviously as a location object that you can reuse. And just by adding those few properties, we're beginning to build out a network of people. And that is super exciting, because you can imagine how easy this is to grow over time and how useful it is. Because if you want to know who works at Capacities, you go there. If you want to know who lives around Newcastle, you've got that information there. And this can just grow with you quite simply from just these few object types. But of course, it does not need to end here. I think if we just zoom in on the kind of work use case a little bit more, we can look at meetings and projects. So we can use the templates for these as well. So let's add both of those. So we'll start with the meetings. Now the template that comes with Capacities has a text property for people involved, and that's a bit different to a select property. If you wanted a very simple drop-down list of the people that are in that meeting, you would add a multi-select property and link it to people. But I just want to show you what having the text can do as well, because the more select properties that you use, you might end up thinking, I actually don't need an object. So by that, I mean, title, properties, somewhere to write. You might not need that for everybody. Maybe there's somebody in a meeting that you don't normally work with and you can't imagine having, much to do with them in the future. You might not want to have them come up in your Capacities, essentially. So by using a text property, you kind of get the best of both worlds, because you can use text like that, or let me just make this full screen, or you can just add. So you can link to someone there. And the reason we like linking, obviously, is it creates backlinks and you can see where everything's being used. But you can see if I open up my page again, I've still got that link. I can still see that I'm part of this meeting with this new person as well. So it's the exact same idea as having a select property like we do with the locations, or like we do with the organisations, but it's just a bit more flexible. not everything needs to be an object, and if that is the kind of philosophy that you take with capacities, then you might find that these text properties are perfectly suitable for you. So if you load this template, just decide if you want to keep that text one or delete it and replace it with a select property, which I did here, but I don't need that one, so I will delete it. And this window here is reminding you that because this is effectively editing the entire object type, it means that this property will be deleted from every meeting that already exists and every meeting that will exist. So when you're editing properties, you're editing all instances, past, present, and future, of whatever object type it is. But anyway, our people are now connected to meetings, but while we're here, we can make a simple connection between meetings and projects as well. So again, another select property, or indeed a text property. You choose if you want the drop down or if you want a more flexible solution like this. I think a select property will probably make sense in most cases, so we will use that. So I choose where I'm linking to and I apply the changes there. So now I can say what it's related to. Another tip, because I'm just filling this out with an actual example, we're making a lot more use case videos at the moment because it's a good way of learning how things work in context. But I had a meeting about this project with Anna, and I don't currently have an Anna object, but it doesn't matter that I don't have this drop down menu which allows me to create a new one for this text property, because it functions just like text here. So how would we create a new object in text? We would use plus, and then you choose what you're doing. So for me, a person, and that would take me to Anna. But you can also do that in this property. So plus, person, enter, Anna. And now I'm able to create that person object, but put it into that property right away. And now I can see that Anna and I have had a planning meeting. What were we planning? The use case project. And all of that information is just really neatly contained and just essentially where I need it if questions arise. So I added one more property to this object type and added a new person, Anna. Now, to show you the benefit again of the network, I think it's important to show how it develops. If I open the graph view of Anna's object right now, all I see is that she did a meeting about a project. But the second that I add where she works, and I reload this graph view, look how it's built out instantly. I'm not just looking at Anna now, I'm seeing Anna within the context of Capacities, which has other employees, and I can see just more information. And that was as easy as saying where she works. And that's the network in action. So again, imagine how this builds out very naturally over time as you find new information, you do new projects, you meet new people, you visit more places. It's going to build out and it's going to be very useful. Now, something else that I think could be useful for people is to add a country object type. This doesn't need to be complex at all. I'm just going to create my own object type here. And what I'm going to do is connect locations to the countries with a bit of magic from AI. So the first thing that I'm going to do is add a select property to this location. I'll choose a single select this time and change the name to country. I'm going to click AI autofill and I'm going to say that I want it to choose an answer from the country object type. Now, what this is going to do is it gives me a handy little fill button here. But to make this useful and not just create a bunch of content that you don't know about and you might not want, it only uses your existing content. And because I've just created this country, I don't have the United Kingdom. So I'll do that now. Could even give it an icon for the flag. And then when I go back to Newcastle and click fill, that automatically fills it in. Now, if you're following along with this video and you want to set up a few countries, I think a fun little tip that I personally use all the time is use your daily note like a scratch pad and write down any countries that come to mind. And I always use escape and then shift and the arrows to select, but you can also just select the blocks by clicking and dragging. And you want to click expand panel. And in here is a very handy function called turn blocks into. And we want to scroll to the bottom. We want to turn each of these blocks into a country. So I can click this button. That's created. I now have 4 countries ready to go, ready for AI to choose whenever it's needed. And of course, I don't actually need them here. I was using this only as a scratch pad. So I can click backspace, and I don't want to delete this content. I just want to not see it in this page. So I click remove just here. And now that's set up and I can use it. And that was super easy. So I'll drag that one to the bottom with locations. And if I add, let's say, Paris, I can fill that in. And I think another good tip generally, like a good usage tip with capacities, is the properties are very easy to use and they don't require you to fill them in the second you create an object. Because imagine it, you're at an event or something, you meet someone new, you want to create an object about them in capacities, but you don't need to fill in every single thing at the time. You can just come back to it, perhaps as part of your weekly review, monthly review, whatever you need. And this table view is actually really useful because you can see all your properties in like a bird's eye view. So let's say you met someone new and you just said, okay, they live in London, we'll edit that later. You can then come into your locations object type, choose the table view, and you still get that fill with AI button at the top. So you can just come and edit it whenever it works for you. Now, obviously, to use that AI feature, you need to have AI enabled. It's totally opt-in, available for anybody on the Pro or Believer plans with capacities. Obviously, if you don't have that or you don't want to use AI, you can just use the select property, obviously without that AI autofill button, and you can just choose from the list. Okay, so the final 2 things that I want to build into this network of people is the idea of recommendations, because people recommend books, places to go, places to eat at, all sorts of things all of the time. I think it's nice to say who recommended things to you, because then you can talk about that with them next time you see them. So I'll use 2 examples which I think could be nice and general. The first is people recommending books. So we can use a template which actually handily has this recommended by property, so we don't need to do anything. As mentioned with the meetings, you can write something down just in text, or you can link to a person. And then the second thing is a general kind of places to eat, places to visit, places to stay. You could break these into separate object types, but the more object types you have, the more things you need to set up. And whilst, the setup can be quite simple, I think really just keeping a general one called places and having collections within it, that could essentially get you the same result without too much effort at all. So let's create that. And obviously in this context, if I want to know who is recommended by, the first property we should add is a text property called recommended by. And then that's really all you need. But of course, we can build this out a little bit further. So just to demonstrate, we could add a restaurant. So let's say there's an amazing restaurant and we want to say where it is, so we know where we find it. I'll use my favorite pin again. To create a single select property, click apply changes, and let's say this thing is in London and it was recommended by me. You could add some details, anything that you want. And again, because we're linking to that London object, we're linking to the person object, we've got more information. So more things to talk to me about. You can see that this was recommended by me, or if you're planning a trip to London, you suddenly look and you think, oh, I need to go and visit this restaurant and I must reach out to James because I haven't got any data for when I last reached out to him, so who knows how long it's been. And then you could do 2 things. You could manually create collections. Such as that. Or if you wanted a more systematic approach and you are a pro or believer user, therefore have access to queries, we could use a tag property called category. So in this example, the default works because it's linking to a tag straight away. And I'm going to add a fixed set here just by clicking this button. And let me tell you what that does. So right now, it's looking, because we've just set it up, it's looking for all of my tags. But I'm not going to use that personal tag. I want to use restaurant or attraction or hotel. And going forward, I only want to see those tags. I don't want to see something related to like my knowledge work or my work. I just want to see those tags. So by applying a fixed set, what that does is essentially it looks for what you have applied already and shows you those first. You can still search for the other tags that you have and bring that into this drop-down menu that we're creating here, but it just keeps everything a little bit tidier as your network grows, which I think is quite handy. And that's what a fixed set does. So here I only see restaurant. So if I add a new place, the only thing I see in that category to start with is a restaurant. If I say that this is a hotel, I can create that and add that to this drop down menu. And again, when I create a new thing, I'm now only seeing hotel and restaurant. So it keeps things a bit tidier, which is useful as your space grows, particularly because tags are a really key feature of Capacities and will be probably used everywhere. So we've said what the category is, and I said that if you had queries, this could work quite nicely, and I'll show you why. So if I click on place and go to the three dots up here and click new query, I'm going to create a list of hotels automatically. And the way that I can do that is by clicking edit, and I just want to find all places who have a category of hotel. So where the category includes hotel, and click update, and that will update. And I can choose crucially how I see this. So if I want that bird's eye view of where it is, if I added pictures, I could make use of the wall or the gallery view, which is more visual. You've got that choice. And to make it more useful and show it where you probably want it, if I click pin to dashboard, that's going to get nested with my collections within my places object type, and it's also going to get a place in the object type dashboard. Now this is something that you can edit. I will do a video on this in more depth because there's lots that you can do with it, but you can essentially make this look how you want and find the information that you want within this network that we are building. And if you wanted to use this system to keep creating queries like this for different categories, just click duplicate, and then we can edit that query to look for restaurants, and we would just rename it. And then the difference between these two is the collections you add to manually, the queries will update automatically because it's just always looking for things that fit the rules that we've just said. So any place that has a category of restaurant. So as soon as Capacities finds another one, it will add it. So we can add an amazing hotel in Paris. We can say it's a hotel, and I'll go back to my hotels, and that's going to show up. There we go. And again, just to reiterate here, it's within this network. So now I've got an amazing hotel, an amazing restaurant, and someone to visit next time I'm in London. And suddenly the kind of idea of planning a trip becomes a lot easier because I just go into Capacities and use the information that I've already input. The final thing to show you, just to tie it all off, is imagine if you had read a book that perhaps James recommended. Give it a 5-star rating. And then it comes to the next time you see James, because you've just planned a trip to London, you can see what you've read or watched recommended from him. And again, with this view, you can open that up and see your thoughts. And essentially, I think this is just a great supporting structure for our lives. There's so many connections in this world between people and things around us, and we can put that into Capacities in a way that's useful at the time, and then you can reuse it. It comes up ready for you whenever you need it, such as planning a trip, such as looking for somewhere to visit, even in your hometown, such as looking for people that you know at an organisation that you're interested in. It's all connected within this same network through the power of these object types and how we can connect them together in various ways. And here's what the graph looks like. We don't have graph view for the whole space, but we do for individual objects, and you can click to show more of it. Even just from this, we can see the utility of connecting to other people, other things, putting this information in, and it's just ready for you to use in the way that works. So I hope that showed you how useful this network of people can be and shows you how you could create one yourself. If there's anything you want to know more about, just let me know in the comments below. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.